Good morning, good afternoon. It's Friday, April 4th, and I just wanted to dive into a couple things because the world is happening at an enormous rate around us, and it's hard to get a moment in before it changes. And I know that people need and want to hear it from a fresh take and a certain perspective that has been suppressed all these years. So here we have the latest news, although it's not really news, I guess, on the war front, and that is that the ceasefire failed. Um, and I say it's not really news because, I mean, come on, it's been, it was a no brainer to begin with. But here's the thing that I think also relates to a lot of other issues going on right now in the world, and what has been going on for basically forever. And the reason, of course, that they're trying to say, oh, the Russians said no, the Russians refused, right? Uh, and the reason is the same as always been. It's that there's nothing in it that addresses the principal problems to begin with, the roots of the conflict, right? This isn't news to anybody. Russia has been saying the same thing for 3 years, or a lot longer than that. So one of the things, I just have a little uh, language thing to insert here because I think it's kind of interesting. In Because Russians have a certain way of saying and doing things, and as diplomats or partners on the international stage, one would think you might be interested in that, and the Americans certainly are not. But this is also something that is for a Russian non-native speaker or a learner, Russian speaker, but not obviously from Russia. So the Russians say, when you ask for something, people will say, uh, typically, there's можно. Yeah, sure. There's a да, можно. And it's very common, but it's a shortened form of вы можете, я могу, ты можешь, ты можешь. You may, which is very polite. But можно also translates as possible. And as I think, I'm not sure even Russians understand this, who are native speakers, but to foreigners, it hits a little differently on the ear. And I remember having trouble with it, um, talking to friends and specifically professors uh, and all that. When it's like you said, can I hand this in late? Можно, да, можно. Yeah, sure. Go ahead. But possible is a translation, and you can't stop translating, no matter how good you are at languages. You can't stop translating it in your head. So you say, well, it's possible. Can I bring a date to the wedding? Да, можно. Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. But of course it's possible. I know it's possible. I'm saying, do you have any? Does it bother you? Is it a problem? Можно. But I think, and I could be wrong, I'm wrong about everything else, so this would not upset me at all. But I think it reveals something about the Russian character and the Russian soul that you see all over the language, all over history and culture and everything else. Можно, it is possible. Вы можете, you may, but it is possible conveys the idea that in order for something to be transacted, it must be possible. And this speaks volumes specifically about the Russian attitude in general and in this situation having to do Russia's the U.S.'s war, proxy war, but now even the New York Times admits that it's just a U.S. war on Ukraine, right? On Russia, excuse me. So, niet, saying the Russians are always saying niet. They always say no. They just don't want to do it. So, niet. The opposite of da is niet. But the opposite of можно is невозможно. It's impolite to say. You don't react that way, but невозможно, not possible. It's impossible. And that's the problem with this ceasefire. It is нельзя, невозможно. It's not possible. And the problem is exactly that. It does not approach any of the issues that are central to resolving this conflict. Right? Another Russian language thing. A friend of mine who's a Russian professor talked about a new colleague who was kind of flamboyant, smart guy, loud, but he was, as the Russian professor, he is unserious. He is unserious, right? And we don't have a word for unserious, but that's what the French would say on garçon sérieux. I don't know, but this is unserious. And this response was unserious. So look, you don't even take the main problems into account. How are we going to respond to this? What are we going to do? And exactly, this is it. No Nazis, no NATO, no nukes, and no non-neutrality. No big army. We don't want this to be a battering ram to attack Russia again. Okay? I don't know. You don't have to say that. I didn't like that you stole my car. Oh, God. You always mention old things, but you stole it again. Right? So you can't do Hitler and do Napoleon and do NATO and then say, well, what? We were just what? So that's a huge issue that none of these things are taken into account in this ceasefire, fake ceasefire. And that's the point. That's why. Because you also can't broker one party to a conflict cannot broker a ceasefire. It's a ceasefire. Well, guess what? Cease firing. Try that on for size. Stop. Even the New York Times, like I said, even the New York Times, the paper of record, which is the official spokesman of the ruling class of the oligarchy in the U.S., the news all the news that's fit to print. Right? I've always called it all the news that fits. They print. So they admitted, as if they were breaking the Pentagon Papers again, or something that they had discovered, this long-held secret, that the U.S. was really in command control of the military from the beginning. Like oh, really? You wondered why NATO freaked out when their officers, including Americans, were underground at Azovstal in Mariupol? And that was at the very beginning of the conflict. And, everybody has known this. Certainly all the diplomats have known. The only people who haven't known are nominally the U.S. Legislature, right? The people who are making these ridiculous laws and voting these ridiculous sums of money, but also the not nominally, really, the votership. American people are buying all the propaganda, lapping it up, and they can't, they don't know one thing from another. But they disguise this as a secret, that they are revealing this secret. And again, from the point of view, taking the side of the Americans as legitimate to begin with, and that it basically it's the Ukrainians' fault that it didn't work out, from this New York Times perspective. And of course, that's really creepy and mean because it's your war. You're the ones who hired this proxy. And it failed. It is failing continually, but not without trying. And the whole thing about ceasefire, it's going strong. They are pushing. All Trump did was slow shipments down for a week, right? All the talk about ceasing, and they're ramped up again. Everything that they are firing, every bomb, every missile, every air defense is from outside, is part of a foreign war against Russia. And they refuse to admit it. So you can't start. How do you start a conversation? How? When you start with someone who says, okay, we're not going to talk about the bank, but you robbed it. Well, no, I know. We're not going to talk about that part of it. I want to talk about the car and how it got there and who bought the gas and who drove and who shot and blah blah blah. It's ridiculous, and it was on purpose. And the Russians, to their credit, will say, "Well, we will see if they are serious." And instead of saying Moshna, they said Nevozmozhno. It's not possible. It doesn't work. This isn't the right flavor. It sticks to the tongue. But now Trump is furious, apparently through other fake news items, and not from himself personally, but through aides and reporters and everything. And everybody is backpedaling on some level and accelerating on another level. The Finnish president is saying, well, we got to remember, we have a 1,000-mile border with Russia. We have to, we have to get used at some point in the distant future. And Zelensky himself come out and say at some point in the distant future, it may revert to Russia keeping these territories, but over time we'll solve it diplomatically, etc., etc. Just, you lost. And you're still fighting. You're still invading Russia. You're still ignoring the ceasefire for the little time that it lasted. That's and you have the true Nazis themselves. These are people who are howling and laying flowers and bowing at the foot of the statue of Stepan Bandera, and Callas and the ethno-states up north who are trying to keep this running. And Macron is doing his job, and Starmer as well. They're unlike being unbelievable that they could bring in a NATO force. That was the whole point of this operation. You're not going to bring in NATO troops to guarantee peace, and this should be dictated by the losing side. I know they haven't read Lao Tzu, but I thought they could have at least read a history book or something. And what is fascinating about this whole thing is that the continuing pressure, the continuing undermining of everything that Russia has done, everything that everyone has done, right? China, Iran, this is just flagrant and arrogant, dancing as if you own everything, as if you can tell everyone else what to do. Hegemony, imperialism, exceptionalism, racism, who knows what you call it, any one of those things. And this will paper over all of the American history that you don't need then to read, I guess. But they seem also to be ignorant and have no idea what they're provoking, what they are doing, like how you can't. And the Europeans seem to be just as bad or worse in this. You can't do this. Do you have any idea the the failure that you have undergone and what it says about your preparedness for this kind of war through an institution like NATO, and something other than a proxy war, something other than a an expeditionary force, that has been the hallmark of U.S. led Western hegemonism, for the last 80 years. I mean, they're not only can they not win, but they are provoking dangerous blowback. And they don't seem to understand it. They don't know how far advanced not only the Russians are, but the Chinese and the Iranians and the Ansarallah. I mean, it seems like they're waving this big stick, and it's not really as big as they think. It's like a fake sex joke. I don't know, whatever. It's not as big as you think. Okay, and if Oreshnik, the hazelnut missile, is only the tip of the ice missile berg, or however, they don't need to start a nuclear war. I mean, that is crazy if the West wants to provoke that, but they have hypersonic MIRVing. I mean, they have ICBMs with non-nuclear payload. They have the precision and the devastation that doesn't even need to target civilians. They could wipe out the entire wharf in Brussels where all of the decisions are made in 8 minutes or something. It is shocking that they don't seem to get the whole idea that they're way behind, actually, and they cannot threaten what they are overtly threatening. This is Nevozmozhno. It is not possible. And they want to take it to the next level, not realizing how crazy and dangerous the next level will be. And that's the only thing. This is the people who supported Trump. I mean, I can understand the disgust with Biden, but this goes along almost all of the same paths. There's no pretending that this is some sort of a peacenik. All that they want now is to stop spending the money here so that they can focus at what the Europeans to pick up the tab so that they can go and move that money and use it to fight Iran and China. I mean, this is already happening. The Hegseth, circulated a memo that was secret, but not so secret, according to WAPO or Wall Street Journal or the Times, one of the papers of record, that we had to get ready for an open, war with China, how to fight China, how to suppress, wars elsewhere, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, this is insanity, right? And they get 50 votes on a Senate bill led by Lindsey Graham. Of course, who else? I mean, I'm surprised they didn't dig up John McCain and McCain and slap his hand on the table to break the 51 against Russia, to have secondary sanctions and more. Since the others didn't work, we're gonna push even further. We're going to attack China. We're going to attack Yemen. No, they are shocked, actually, that the Yemenis have really stood up. And guess what? To protect a ceasefire. They said, you know what? You're not going to have a free and open transport in the Red Sea if that prevents uh, humanitarian aid from getting to Gaza and military shipments to get to Israel? No, that's breaking the ceasefire. Oh, and that one was okay. Apparently, that doesn't matter. And so they also have access to hypersonic missiles, to ballistic, that that it has shocked Israel and its puppeteer, the U.S. And obviously, some of this has to be coming from support from Iran, from Russia. Who knows? China? Who knows? But this is what you're undertaking. This is what you're provoking. And the Russians are reading this room. This is happening all over the world. They're not stupid. You have this buildup. You have bombers that are settling on Diego Garcia, anti-aircraft, missile defense, all being built up in Diego Garcia, which is about, 3,000 kilometers from Iran. It is within the striking range of these bombers. They're planning something, and this is the problem with this approach all around. The U.S. has surrounded China, has surrounded Russia, surrounded Iran with all of these bases, hundreds and hundreds of them, and that doesn't change. That has not changed at all. That's what the Russians are seeing, right? That is the stage on which all of this is being played out. Then, of course, you're going to say, well, this little intermediary thing, this ceasefire, is really important. You're talking to the arsonists who burned down the house to the left of you, burned down the house to the right of you, and says, "Don't worry, you're safe. We need to talk about fire suppression." Again, you want a ceasefire? Cease firing. We're talking now the rumors about imminent attack, like this one on Iran, or a new Russian offensive. The Ukrainians are saying, and the NATO is saying, there's a huge new Russian offensive coming. It's all of these things happening all over the world at the same time. And Russia can read the room. And so they close ranks with Iran and China. This is a huge backfire. And guess what Trump cannot do, which is second guess any policy related to Israel. This is allowing Israel to continue raining bombs on little kids. It's crazy. This is not a peace, man. That's ridiculous. And you cannot pick a card out of the middle of the deck and say this is the only one that's in the game. It doesn't work that way. Everybody knows and everyone sees what has been going on and what will continue to go on if it's allowed to. If it is allowed to happen. And if once you say that you're following this procedure, then it really negates everything that you've said. First of all, you're not anti-war, right? And, even on the domestic front, right, with this whole thing, Trump scored a lot of points with his fake anti-immigrant stuff, which, rang a lot of bells in people's heads because he clothed it in the usual non-racist, supposedly, thing of anti-immigrant, illegal immigration and the deportation of criminals, right? Remember, they were going to empty their jails and their loony bins. That's the problem with immigration. Usual racist cover shit. Now, what happened? Already, Israel has made it a priority, or his allegiance to the Israel project has made it a priority to move straight ahead to the overtly racist, anti-Arab, anti-Palestinian charade of deporting perfectly law-abiding, legitimately studying kids. Arrest someone in Cincinnati, arrest someone at defund Columbia, arrest someone at Tufts, arrest someone in somewhere in Louisiana, and ship them home because they're doing the wrong thing politically. So this is politically motivated, racially based immigration stuff, right? Because he cannot buck his support for the Zionist project. It is shocking, but it just means that things are going the same way they've been going, and they're not changing. And this is what Russia sees, and China, and everyone else. So now, if you start this trade war, you're not only is it horrifically radical in one sense, but it also gives the excuse to the rest of the world to confront you on what you're doing. And in Europe, this means supporting Ukraine because Trump is doing the wrong thing. Anti-Trump means against Trump, means 2 + 2 is 4, but Trump said it, so it's really probably 7 or 12, whatever. So if we can oppose him on the tariffs, which we have to, we can also oppose him on his failure to continue the war in Ukraine. And this is very common. It's common among all detractors of Trump. Yeah, sure. This is this is like this weird idea, mythical almost and historical, that you can resurrect a time before the Depression, like back to the turn of the 20th century, that before there was any global economy, that you have this huge tariff, reciprocal tariffs, and tariffs this, tariffs that. I mean, that you can't be. Obviously, everyone learned about medieval England, where it was illegal to import wool, and you could get your hand cut off for doing that because you want to empower internal processes to build the economy, to build your industry, and so on and so on. But of course, there are two things. One is that this is a huge reversal. It could take years to have any effect with something like this, and any positive effect. The immediate effect, everybody agrees, even the people proposing it agrees, will be horrific. And that hurts us. That hurts people who are going to buy a car for twice what it was last year. That hurts people who are trying to get by in an economy that has re-enslaved millions of people. That's terrible. It's terrible for even for Trump domestically. I mean, but it's just another billionaire having his hand at playing with your money. That's the real issue. It's not. Trump isn't less sensitive than the Democrats, than liberals, than anyone except for the most strict Keynesian. Under this system as it has developed, the post World War II and then post Bretton Woods and now globalized economy, it doesn't change that easily, and it puts people at the mercy of a very small cadre of elites. And it gives, in the short term, it gives the Zelensky people, the Banderists and their European compadres more steam to continue this war. And this is the thing. They really, when we weren't joking, they really are Nazis. They're running ads, banning the Russian language, running ads that said, if does your sister listen to Russian music, turn her in. I mean, this is not something we made up. And this is not the first time that we've been pointing it out. It's been the same thing for 3 years, or 8 or 12 or 57, however you want to count. But it's not new at all. So that you get to now, why are you expecting things to change on the other side when they haven't changed on your own? If you're pushing the war, if you're pushing all these changes and reshaping the economy, etc. But the point is that we, the people, need control over our money and the wealth that our labor and brain power has accumulated, not this or that oligarch. I mean, that's, Trump is an oligarch. Musk is an oligarch. I guess they put him there to kind of keep tabs on the other oligarch, but they don't usually run for things. Maybe Poroshenko. But even Kolomoisky wasn't stupid enough to run himself. He hired Zelensky. That's what they do. They pay off someone to do that. Trump wanted to be the oligarch who was in control himself. I imagine the ego. The ego is amazing. But I don't know. That doesn't work out well in general. So we have the Russians looking at all this saying, okay, well, fine. Go away then. We're just things aren't changing and things are moving on. We're coming up on the May 9th, which is when I flew the Russian flag last year and got pummeled by bad Google reviews for my school from Ukrainians. But this is Dien Pobyeды, the day of victory over the Nazis, over the fascists in World War II. It's an enormous holiday in Russia still, with or without the Soviet Union. And it is something that is widely celebrated. This year is the 80th. So it's a big deal. It should include all of the people for whom the Russians risked and sacrificed 27 million of their own citizens to defeat the Germans, to defeat fascism. But no, they won't be coming. Starmer won't be coming. Macron won't be coming. But guess what? The guest of honor, right, is Xi Jinping, the president of the People's Republic of China. And there will be a separate state visit. It is an official state visit. First one. Oh, here's also who's coming. Ibrahim Traore, guy who jump-started the AES to kick out ECOWAS in the French in West Africa, and who is the president of Burkina Faso. Why not? Why not? These are people who support Russia's as a bulwark against fascism. So these will be these are the ranks closing, and this is history moving forward, right? Not only is the honeymoon over with the recently reelected or elected again president, number 47. His brain has gone on steroids and declared war on the entire world. So guess what? Nothing has changed from Russia's perspective. Why would they? And here we go. Let the battle begin. I don't think it's going to be an all-out nuclear war, but it is a trade war, a war of the worlds, and Trump and his American counterparts are not in a great position to do so. So we'll see. Thanks for watching, and we will check in again. Bye bye.